That shake there isn't random rumble, it's live telemetry telling me my wings are about to lose lift. Out of the box WinWing sims or wing controls default vibration profiles are pretty nice and good to use. But in hopefully under 10 minutes you can fully customize every motor response to transform it into a position tactical instrument. Using SimAppPro, but also there are some community tools which allow you to configure these settings. Watch till the end because there's a nice surprise for you at the end to get started with this. To customize the vibration profiles, you of course need to use SimAppPro. At least that's one of the options. And that's where you'll find your device, and if you select the device you can do a lot of things. But of course everything is set up, at least I assume you did. As you can see here, the vibration intensity is set to 0, which is the default mode. You can leave it like this, but this is not the thing which we're looking for. We need to go one step back and then go to the dynamic vibration motor. By default, the setting is set to default. And you can see that I can select the game, I can select the aircraft type. But if I press setting here, I can go to advanced. If I would set it to disabled, it will simply be disabled. If I go to advanced, you can see that I get more options. In this case, I get some pre-configured profiles which I created. But if you look at, for example, one of these other aircrafts, you see that also other people are creating profiles which you can download and then activate by pressing the run option. So to create a new profile, make sure that you select the current game and the aircraft and then press new profile. This will again ask you for confirmation because we'll ask you for a template to use. So you can select Flight Simulator 2024 or 2020, and based on that you will get a list of the Airbus aircrafts which are included in Flight Simulator 2024. This might differ depending on which version you're using. Based on that, you select one of the aircrafts, you get the option to say empty, or you can say create a new one, but this will override the profile. So I'm selecting new, and then I'm going to select a demo and say a demo file, and I press create. Once I press create, it asks me for confirmation, so I can press OK, and this will create the profile as you can already see here. Now this is the first step, and the next step is that you need to configure those settings. So you press the 3 dots, then you go to description. Once you check the description, go to edit, and this is where the real work starts. Now I can imagine that you're overwhelmed by all these values, and that, to be honest, was also the case when I started looking at this. So the first column is the effect. That's where the effects are listed. So for example, the landing gear contains the gear in flight and gear touchdown. And then it contains a condition. So the gear in flight means that the gear is down. Then it will apply, say this, right? So if you're doing the gear down, if you're, for example, approaching the airport, then it will start applying these vibration settings. In this case, there are multiple true airspeeds configured. So 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. But what I saw with some other developers or some other, let's say, active community people, they deleted everything and simply set a single one. That of course depends on your preferences, but I will show you a completed one in a few seconds, so hold on a while. But you need to keep in mind that depending on the effect you choose, you need to configure, I would say, values either in percentages, and this in this case is the gear value, right? How much the gear is down, and then the vibration it's causing, so 16.66%. If rear or airspeed is 0. If our airspeed would be 4, for example, if I select the dot over here, I can see that the, I would say, vibration is, I would say, much stronger, which makes sense. Now the nice thing is that you can do two things. You can change the values by, I'd say, changing the value like this and then typing it, or you can simply press this up and down, and you can directly see that the dot moves up and down. Now the cool thing is that you can also select the dot and move it around. So you can simply move it around. You need to keep in mind that it will also change the position of the dot on the other lines, but not the, I would say steepness of the, in this case, of the graph. So that's something you need to keep in mind. Gear values are from 0 to 100. That defines, let's say, this percentage, but you will see in a few seconds with a complete profile that it's a little bit different. This setting is a positional effect, so it depends on the position where the gear is, and then it applies the vibration. And of course, it also takes into account the airspeed. Now, if I would move to the next one, which is the gear touch ground, this one is a little bit different because this is when the gears are touching the ground. And here you can see that the duration is from 0 to 1 second because it goes really fast, right? Normally if an airplane is landing, then the gears touching the ground goes really in a split second. Here you can see a straight line, in this case again, and then you can see the dots. And if you select the dots, it will show you the configuration points, which are showing the value in milliseconds. So you can either, let's say, make the vibration stronger by simply, let's say, adding it like this, or decreasing it by simply picking that value and then pulling it down. It really depends on, let's say, the aircraft characteristics, of course. Now, once you define this, you don't need to understand another thing, because we now discussed these two items. So if I want to activate them, I need to press these options over here, which will activate the configuration. Now for the other values, it's exactly the same, right? So the control surfaces like the elevator, etc., the 11, the rudder, you can see that you need to specify a value, then specify the vibration, and then you need to make sure that you, let's say, enable them. In this resolution, you can't see the real values, or at least the value which you need to put in. But if you hover over the fields, it will give you an indication. So for example, the elevator surface, and you need to specify different values. Now, there's another thing, and it might be that you don't need specific values, or you don't want to specify them. You can simply say not check the boxes, and then it simply won't be activated. So that's also a thing which you need to keep in mind. The most important ones are the landing gear, I would say the control surfaces, then if you look at the speed, the engine thrust and the vertical velocity, speed brakes of course, and then the angle of attack and the rate of angle of attack. Difference, the angle of attack, everybody knows, right? If you're pushing the aircraft too much, it will eventually go into a stall. If it goes into a stall, you will likely want to increase the vibration. If you think about the rate of angle of attack, this is, I would say, a measure which is how fast you're yanking the stick, giving you an immediate haptic slack or abrupt pull-ups. You simply would say push the stick hard back, then you will directly, would say, being, I would say, enforced by that nice, say, configuration, by that nice vibration, which is also, by the way, known as force feedback. Once you're happy, don't forget to hit the save button over here, because if you don't do that, you are, let's say, losing all your differences or all your you're losing all your changes. So if I press OK, then it's being, let's say, saved. And you can see it's also active. If I want to deactivate it, I simply press the button again, that will be deactivated. Now I skipped some things like, for example, the share option, because if you think your profile is, let's say, amazing, then feel free to share it, because then you can share your profile with everybody which is using SimAppPro, and then you can simply, let's say, start sharing it and let other people benefit from it. Now, as promised, I would show you also a completed profile. In this case, the one from Fabrice Smith, which has created it for the Phoenix A320 CFM. If I go to the three dots, I only have two options. I can delete it or I can edit it. That's an important thing which you need to understand. And this is what I already mentioned. In this case, he decided to only define, in this case, one line, two lines, three lines, as you can see. And then the true airspeed, it has been set to 70. This is what I would say he thinks is the best option. I'm not sure if it is, right, because I didn't create it, but I would say there must be, let's say, a mindset behind this. You can see the gear value from 0 to 100, and you can see for the gear touch ground, he defined a different one, right? So if you're on the ground, once you're on the ground, right, you don't need a lot of vibration, but at the start, you might want to have some more vibration, as you can see. So at 0 seconds, 100, and then it will slowly down to 0. And this is how you can configure it, how you can use it. In this case, the engine thrust goes parabolic almost. And this really helps you getting more vibration and making it more realistic when using the controller in Flight Simulator 2020 or 2024. But as promised, there also are some community tools. So let's start looking at them. So the first tool we're going to look at is the Ursa Minor FFB, which is a tool which allows you to select from predefined profiles. You can select the Airbus, the fighter, or space. So I select the Airbus, and then it contains again different profiles. You can select general aviation, commercial, and fighter. So this really, let's say, the type of joystick, and this really the preset. So if I select general aviation, you can see that the values are different compared to if I select commercial. Super handy, because this allows you to simply move those, let's say, values over here, and you can also reset it. So if you want to reset to factory default, it will simply allow you to do. This is much easier compared to the tooling from SimAppPro, because you don't need to move around those curves. But of course, this is also limiting you in, but it also prevents you from adding more granularity. Then on the bottom, we can see the live air traffic data. This is received via SimConnect, and this allows you to, say, measure or see what values it received from Flight Simulator 2024 in this case. And in this case, you can see that, for example, spoilers are causing 28%, I think, rumble. Whereas in the stall, you go to 160. Well, likely it's not percentage. It's a different value. I'm not sure which value it is, but this is, the let's say, value where it starts vibrating. And these are the default things. You can see that the side stick is now connected, also nice. And the only thing you need to make sure is that you select start, and if you don't want to use it, hit stop, because then it will simply, let's say, stop by using this functionality. So that's the first tool. Now the second tool is Aurora Vibra. So I already downloaded it. Again, I put the download link in the description of this video. The first time you start it, you need to make sure that you say, hey, I want to, say, trust this tool, because it's not signed with a certificate. But developer, I would say, provided the key, so you can simply check it if it's valid, yes or no. This one is a little bit different, but it's based on the previous tool. So you can say either load a profile, you can save a profile, you can see that it has some options over here. It can automatically detect the active game. You can also enable debugging, you can check for updates, and this contains the aircraft profiles. But in this case, it doesn't contain any profile yet. So you need to modify this. And based on this, you can see that you can say the combat stick, and based on this, you can say combat stick or the Win Control Ursa minor throttle, or you can hopefully also select some other, let's say, devices. And these are things which you can configure, and then based on that, you can simply, let's say, change the values over here. I must say that the interface is a little bit unlucky, at least the color selecting, right? Because you can see here's the taxi time settings, and then here it says, okay, start in knots. So likely, I would say there's some work for the developer to do to fix this part. Here again, you also can see the telemetry if you select the telemetry. And here you can see the different sections. So gears touchdown, engine start stop, taxi time, and aerodynamics. And based on that, you can simply configure this. Again, these are really easy things to configure compared to SimAppPro. I'd say a little bit more detailed compared to the previous tool. So you've got, I would say, so there's a tool for everybody, depending on what you want to do. So by capping continuous background rumble, tuning steep angle of attack curves with payload filtering, and layering community tools for ground dynamics and low latency, your WinWing device transforms from a passive stick into an active one. It might have already been active because there are multiple profiles already active in the basic state, but these tools are simply allowing you to get more control of how that force feedback works. Now, to get started customizing those profiles, I created an overview for you using some AI tools. So I'm not 100% sure if they are correct, but this could be a starting point for you to create your own vibration profiles or force feedback profiles for your WingSim controller for the Airbus A320, 321, 330, Airbus Beluga, as well as the Airbus A380. So have fun with it. Let me know if you think this is valuable. Also, feel free to share your customized profile by adding a comment down below where we can download it so everybody can benefit from it. Thanks for watching, and until next time.